Hey folks, welcome to Free Press Sports with Carlos and Shawn. Thanksgiving edition, Carlos. Although I don't know why I'm smiling. You shouldn't be smiling because
why not?
What are we doing?
The game's over. We're going home. Of course we're smiling.
We're going to go see families and you're going to eat some more turkey, that sort of thing?
Not me. No turkey for me.
How can you be smiling when this is, I don't want to say it's the most anticipated Thanksgiving Day game in a long time, but it is. So I'm going to go ahead and say it. Not necessarily because it was the Packers or the Lions, but because the Lions were 8-2 for the first time in 61 years. And they were taking a little bit of pride. I'm talking about the Lions fans here, that they had a team the rest of the country actually wanted to watch for a change. Yeah. And then they went out and played like that. They lose, 29-22. They fall to 8-3. We'll see what Minnesota does this weekend, but they could only be a game up in the NFC North. So it's going to get interesting, I would imagine, from here on out. The next 6 games they have left.
Yeah. No, it's it was a disappointing game, but you know what? And I didn't quite ask. I did ask Lee McNeil in the locker room this, but I mean, they're human. This is the third game in 12 days. It's a lot, and no player, no team's ever going to want to use that as an excuse. On we're superhuman people. We don't get tired. Bruises, fatigue. Especially they played 2 tough games, the shootout in LA and the last second win against Chicago on Sunday. I mean, that takes it out of you when you have to muster that much effort to win those games. If they were just cruising and throwing in backups at the end, that'd be different. But so those are hard fought wins, and it's going to catch up to you. And the Packers just looked like they were more ready. They came out right away with that huge, pass to Christian Watson. And it was, they just looked hungry. They looked more prepared and willing to win this game, and they have something to prove. The Lions have played really well in primetime games on the spotlight. So I think the Packers wanted to show something like, hey, don't forget about us. We're still here. We're still the Packers. So give them a lot of credit. But, I don't think anybody saw the Packers going up and just like taking it to the Lions from the beginning and just an insurmountable lead. Really, it was surprising.
That's actually absolutely what happened, right? Yeah. They got physically dominated up front. By the way, I don't know. I'm trying to remember the exact stat, but the ball to Christian Watson from Jordan Love was the first play from the line of scrimmage. Green Bay's opening drive, obviously, was 53 yards, and I want to say that's the most yards. That's as much yards as he's had in any game all season, right? In the very first play. And by the way, Jordan Love had, I don't know, he had time to run over to Lafayette Coney and come back and still throw the ball, right?
I mean, prefers American, but
maybe he does prefer American, but in any case, he had all day. So look, let's talk about your headline, because you wrote in your very, very pungent and observational, really of the human condition, but just the way you see the world. You put your 3 questions out there. The headline is, this is the most disappointing, I want to say, disappointing loss of Dan Campbell's tenure. Will you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, just when you consider they're 8-2 coming in, kings of the NFC North, they're cruising to the title. They're coming off this last second miraculous comeback. The shootout in LA. I mean, everything's going their way, right? The Packers, they'd won 2 out of 3, against okay teams. Nobody great. The Chargers were one of them. The Rams were not a good team. They beat them. So I don't think anybody was expecting them to come here, especially what we saw in Green Bay. Like, oh, the Lions are coming home for a big game. They haven't won the last 6 Thanksgiving. They're probably going to be motivated. The fans were fired up. They're healthy. I mean, relatively speaking, they're pretty healthy. It was shocking to see that they just were, outplayed. And then they got in their own way with the fumbles, with Jared Goff's fumbles. They can't get any takeaways, no pressure on Jordan Love. They're not, it just nothing was going well for them. They even missed an extra point. It just didn't look right. And that's what I think is disappointing, is for who they are right now. The best coming in second best record in the NFL, Shawn. I mean, to do this, to get beat up by the Packers at home on Thanksgiving, not good. And I compared it to like last year's loss in Carolina was really bad as well. The blowout in Baltimore was pretty bad too. But for who they are right now, for the quality of this team, for as good as they are, for how far they've come to get manhandled, and it was not. They made it respectable at the end, obviously, but it really wasn't a close game at all for most of the game. So that's why I just couldn't believe I was seeing this performance out of them.
They got out physical, not toughed up front on both sides. But
too.
No, they had mistakes too, but some of those mistakes were because they were losing the line of scrimmage. But I think it starts with the offensive line. Dan Campbell was asked after the game, did he? Right. I thought it was a good question. Did he went after a loss? He generally points to the offense, and was he being a little bit protective of the defense, or the implication was, do you expect more out of the offense? And he more or less said he did. Right? He said because and I wish I could remember the exact quote, but it was the idea that we're built around the offense, and he specifically mentioned the offensive line, and they are, and that's the best part of this team. By the way, Jonah Jackson was missed today. He's a big difference maker. No, for sure. When he's in there, Goff doesn't get pressured up the middle in quite the same way, and that's a huge hint. You can talk about the trade deadline all you want. Brad Holmes is playing. He's going to have to pay Jonah Jackson. They are not the same offensive line without, or Frank Ragnow for that matter too, but he's a big difference maker, and he's a really good player. And we don't talk a lot about him because Sewell's been so good. Decker's been really good for a long time. Ragnow's been a Pro Bowl type player.
But he's got injury issues and so forth. But Jonah Jackson, man, and you can see, you watch the game today, Goff was under tremendous pressure. Would he get hit 12 times?
12 times.
And most of that, and now I know Sewell got beat a couple times, which is unusual. Decker did too. Maybe he's been hurt to get a little bit. But the worst kind of pressure, obviously, is coming up the middle. But let me ask you this. So, look, the offensive line did not play well today. The offense struggled because they scored 14 points until a garbage touchdown. Is that fair to call it?
Right.
At the end of the game. At the end of the game. Let me ask you this, though. There are two plays. Now, this is a negative view. It's a glass
from you?
A glass half empty view, but there are two plays from being 6-5. They won at San Diego on a last-second field goal.
Right. San Diego. Oh my Lord.
Sorry, Los Angeles.
Inglewood.
The Chargers.
The Inglewood Chargers. Yes.
Chicago. We saw the miracle this past Sunday. Maybe this game plays out a little bit differently if they do lose those last two games. Right. I don't know. I mean, so look, that's just a couple of plays from 6-5. The NFL is often like this. Most of the teams, you're in those kind of margins. The Lions are a good team,
right?
But they're not great, right? And there's a difference. So you got to win. So here's the thing, though: if they come out again, and I'm curious what you think, and play like this. We'll say when they come back, a week from Sunday and play at New Orleans, which you'll be at, by the way, and we'll have to talk later about where you're going to eat. That's very, very important, and the kind of beignets you're going to get. But no. But if we see a few more of these efforts, a month ago we were thinking about, okay, they got one team the last 6 games, the Cowboys. That's not true. The Vikings are
right.
The Vikings are coming. They got to play them twice. The Broncos are playing better. We just saw Chicago with a healthy Fields. They're at least dangerous in that game's at Soldier Field.
Yeah.
New Orleans won't be easy. I know they're not a great team, but that's not an easy place to play.
No.
You got 6 games left. If you're not careful, you're. I'm not saying they're going to go 1-5 or anything, but 2-4 is out there. 3-3 is certainly out there, and it changes. What do you think of what they're facing?
Yeah, I think that this game should call a lot of stuff into question because you cannot lose this way at home to the Packers. I mean, the Packers are not a good team, and being at home, I know they played 4 days ago. They're probably tired. The Packers did too. So, and the Packers had to travel. I just don't understand. They can lose any game. If they can lose this game, they can lose any game, really, for who they have left on their schedule.
Well, real quickly, think about who's left on the schedule, right? Everybody's as good as what Green Bay is today, even the Bears, with a healthy Fields, right?
Absolutely. What you're saying is right about the Bears is it's always hard to win in Chicago, and I think the Lions got lucky against the Bears. They just put it in overdrive on offense when they were able to, and the problem is the defense can't. They can't. I asked Campbell this, and can you rely on your defense to take over when you need to make a big stop, to take over the game and win? And he's like, yeah, I believe in them. What's he going to say? Really? But if you watch the games, do you believe that the Lions defense can oh yeah, put it on us, coach. We're going to save the day. It's like it all comes down to how well can the Lions offense play? How few mistakes can they play? Because they're not going to get stops on defense. They may get one here or there, or hold them to a field goal, or whatever. And they did. They give them some short fields, and obviously the fumble that was returned for a touchdown wasn't on the defense. But it's just not a unit that they can rely on. So yeah, any of these games, can be lost. Now, the 3 games in 12 days is asking a lot for a team, for any team. So with 10 games basically, or 10 days until their next game in New Orleans, I would expect that they can make some adjustments, think about what they need to clean up, account for deficiencies on, the pass rush, whatever it is, figure something out, bring an extra rusher or whatever you need to do. But it's that road now is a little more worrisome than it was. I would say the Chicago game worried me too, because that was a little luck. But after the Chargers game, it felt like, all right, they'll just win a shootout if they have to, I guess. But now I don't know that they can really do that.
Let's talk more about their offense, but in a second. But let's first take a quick break, and we'll be right back with more Free Press with Carlos and Shawn. Free Press Sports. It doesn't matter. You're the Free Press.
Shawn Windsor show.
I don't need to say sports because you're the Free Press. I'm with the man here. We'll be right back with more of the man. We'll break down that offense a little bit more. Welcome back to Free Press Sports with Carlos and Shawn. Carlos just had to run up and down. I think it's 7 flights from the press box down. You got your exercise in?
Yeah, I got my stairs.
You're feeling better.
Mm-hmm.
You're feeling better.
Yeah.
So, look, we talk about narratives. You like to talk about narratives and agendas and people having all this in sports. But here's where a narrative is interesting to me, especially in an NFL season, especially with these lines. So they're 8-2 before today. Mm-hmm. Before the Thanksgiving game.
Yeah.
First time
8-3, I think.
First time they've been 8-2 in 61 years, which is still hard to get your head around that fact, right? I mean, it's almost surreal thinking about 61 years for a team to get to 8-2. We're not talking about 17-0 or 16-0 or some ridiculous historical mark. We're talking about 8-2, which is
Patriots fans just being like, what? Even Packers fans like
exactly. So they're 8-2. So people are on a giddy. They're giddy. They're coming in on this all this anticipation, excitement coming to this game, but it can get away. It can get away in a hurry. And again, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but this New Orleans game now, and I know it's 11 days away, whatever, 10 days, is a big, sneaky big game all of a sudden. And New Orleans is not a great team, but we're going to have to see the offense. I'm not saying they're falling apart after one game, but we see what happens if Goff doesn't have time to throw. Right. And they ran the ball fine today, more or less. Didn't run it so well early, but what do you think? Dan Campbell talked about going through, studying, trying to maybe adjust some things. But do you think it's just that, or do you think there's also this sense of handling the expectation that some of the players were asked in the locker room? Carlos, you heard him, I assume. Our team's coming after you different now because you're 8-2.
Yeah. Because
the vibe, because the story around, because Jim Nantz and whoever else is on TV talking, Tony Romo talking about these are Super Bowl contenders. Yeah. Does that amp up the other guys coming in? Are the lines being seen in a different way now?
Oh yeah. Football teams, all sports teams, but especially football teams use anything they can, right? So you need grist for the mill, and that's what they do. Hey, are these guys, these clowns have never won the NFC North and they're the kings of the division? How many times have we won it? We're the flipping Packers. We're going to show them we're the Packers. We're going to punch them in the mouth right off the bat with a deep throw, all this stuff. And they did it. They lived up to it. They played like it. They played like the hungry team, like the team, trying to punch up, in a weight class. And they knocked out the bully today. The Lions are, it's hard to say, they're the bully right now in the division, but they are, and they're going to get every team's best shot, and that is the difference here. And they have been handling it. I mean, I think they got the Chargers' best shot, they got the Bears' best shot, and they had to really step up to win those games. But the Packers today, it just it went their way. I mean, they just had a better game plan. They control the line of scrimmage. It worked out, and you have to give them credit for that. And, part of it too is this is the first division team that they played a second time. There's always a saying it's hard to beat a team twice, but I think the Packers were embarrassed when the Lions beat them in September. The Lions fans took over the stadium and all that other stuff. So they were like, we're going to do it in their house now. And they did it. And the Packers fans have to feel really good about this. In fact, there were very few Packers. Normally there's a lot more Packers fans at Lions games. There were very few, very little green and gold outside today when I was walking in. So I was mildly surprised by it, but it's also like, man, your team's 4-6. You got your teeth kicked in September by this team. You really want to go to Detroit on Thanksgiving to watch this team get, beat up. Most people predicted a blowout for the Lions. So, that's the thing. They're going to get most teams' best shots. So it's going to be tricky. And I don't think I think the Lions have a pretty good, with Jan Campbell, I think they have a pretty good head on their shoulders for that stuff. They don't let it get away from them. I think it reminds them a lot of, we haven't really done anything yet. We want to accomplish a lot, but we're not there. So I don't think that's a problem. But the fact is, just when someone's motivated to beat you, and you don't, it's hard to motivate yourself to punch down and to play the weakling team, so they're going to have to sort of get used to that a little bit more. But that's a new challenge for them the rest of the season.
It is, and they're going to need some injury luck too, right? I mean, you just are. I mean, all NFL teams have a deal with injuries, but they're going to need the best part of the team again is the offensive line. Jared Goff's really good play. It flows out from that, and then they have obviously really good skill players around that. But it's all connected. But it starts up front. If they're relatively healthy up there and intact, then they should be fine. I mean, because let's be real, the defense is not going to stop.
Okay,
they're going to have to outscore teams for the most part. Yeah. And Campbell, here I want you to make your point, but Campbell's also, he talked about the turnover margin. It's funny, I wrote about that a little bit the other day. They're one of the worst in the NFL this year. That winning streak last year, they were among the best. I think that's actually a good sign that they're 8-3. And what were they, 3-0 today, or 4-0, 3-0? I can't remember how many turnovers. There were so many of them.
Yeah, 3-0. I think it was.
Yeah, 7 in the last two games. But the fact that they're 8-3 and among the worst turnover margins in the NFL, I think is kind of a good sign in a way that they're overcoming. But they can't keep doing it. That's why you were gonna make your Carlos point.
My Carlos point is that as much as you love the offensive line, that was one of the problems today. Is that you had Colby Sorsdahl playing left guard, and was he left guard or right guard? I forget. I think it was left guard. And he got benched. So he wasn't. He was struggling. He's a rookie. And the thing with Frank Ragno's got that just perpetual turf toe problem, and he came out of the game just for a little bit to get it looked at. And that's the thing we never know, is he'll never come and say, hey, my foot's really feeling bad this week, or I feel better this week with my foot, with my toe, or whatever. So we don't know. When he goes to the game, he plays. He's a gamer. He's a pro. But everybody has varying degrees of health, right? And how good you feel, how confident, whatever it is, so that's a concern. With the guard, I mean, Jonah Jackson is a big deal. I mean, he's made a Pro Bowl. He's a very good player. We disagree on the whole, pay. I don't think you should pay interior offensive linemen. You shouldn't draft them in the first round either. But that is concern. You're right. It's important. They need players there, but you need to be able to draft them in the second round or later.
Well, that's a different conversation. Once you have them, though, and they're this good, you got to pay them. No, you don't. Especially when as long as Jared Goff is on this team and this quarterback, they better have this line, right? Or he's not going to be the same player.
If you can't find an interior offensive lineman in the second round as a GM, get out of the business. You have no business in the NFL.
Well, but no, they're not. You act like
overpaying in free agency.
You act like they're all created equal. No, he's not going to go make $100 million or whatever. But they're not all created equally.
If Jonah Jackson was a every year All-Pro and destroying people or whatever, which has probably never happened in the history of the NFL, but come on.
No, he's really, really good when he's healthy. The problem is the health. And you're going to have, that's the nature of this game too. But in any case, for right now, for this season, the team's built around the offensive line. You can argue about should they move on, go down a different direction a couple of years from now, reconfigure what they're doing, a different kind of quarterback, whatever. Those are different questions. But for this year, for them to get to the playoffs and win a game, maybe do some of the things they're hoping they can do, it's about the offensive line. That's where it starts and stops. And today, they were not good at all. And it showed.
Well, that's another question: is why didn't Brad Holmes go get somebody at the trade deadline, though, if he was concerned about health? They already lost Vaitai, so go get someone who's a borderline starter, right, for this year. If that's what you're built around, if that's what your strength is, you're a Jonah Jackson injury away from really compromising your strength
against a good team. with a good passion, right?
Yeah, in the playoffs, if you want to do anything in the playoffs. And that was the problem with the trade deadline. All the criticism that I had about it was, you can win games against maybe the Bears and the Chargers, right? Without a second, really capable edge rusher or a safety or, defensive back, whatever. But you're going to play really good teams pretty soon that'll either make the difference in your playoff seeding or definitely when the playoffs come, you're going to play some good teams. You're going to need those borderline elite players who make a difference. And this is your last chance to get one, and they just didn't do anything. So now good luck, with Tracy Walker back there and when you could have had Kevin Byard.
Well, they're hoping that CJ Gardner-Johnson comes back.
He's not coming back.
No, he's not. Maybe if they get to the Super Bowl, he'll come back.
Right, for the parade. He'll be there for the parade.
No. That's the other thing. We don't want to relitigate everything. Obviously, they tried to make the defense a little bit better in the offseason. They got some interesting pieces, and they just immediately had bad injury luck. Right. And their second best pass rusher, they lost him almost immediately. Their best safety, maybe their best secondary player in general. But hey, that's how it goes, right? It's just they weren't trying to become a dominant defense this year. They were trying to become an okay defense this year. And the injuries have kept that from happening. I don't know if they've been healthy, would they've been average or not? Who knows? Maybe they've still been terrible. But that's just kind of where they are right now.
That's who they are.
They're going to have to outscore people. They're going to have some health. I think they're obviously capable of playing a lot better than we saw today. But and maybe you're right. Maybe it's the 4 days. But again, you get to 8-2, you start thinking in a certain way. And to watch this is a bit of a letdown. But it's not over. They beat New Orleans, and all of a sudden they're 9-3, and the conversation is different. It's just it's a week to week business. Yeah. The story's going to change by the week.
Yeah,
it's just where we are. But the season's not quite over, even for you, right?
Yeah, I mean they're still a capable team. I don't expect them to implode or anything like that. They're just not going to roll to the division the way probably we thought they might. So you have to remember too. Other teams kind of figure things out. I don't know if any of them have hired Connor Stallions or anything like that, but they figure things out, and especially when you see a team a second time. So that will help. But I do think that this little bit of a break, 10 days until the game. I think, and I think I told you coming out of halftime, Ben Johnson does make some better adjustments usually at halftime. And this is kind of their halftime. They're going to have 10 days of a break. And, Dan Campbell's going to be like, grinding through game film tonight probably or whatever as soon as he gets home. So they're not going to take this lightly. You can tell that it was disappointing for them. But you know what? Maybe they can take it as a learning step and like, hey, let's not let this happen again. Remember Green Bay? We were 8-2 and look what they did. They came in and they handed us our butts. So we can't let that happen. We can't take teams lightly anymore.
No, they can't. They can't do that at all. I think that's pretty obvious. I'm surprised. Not surprised. It's nice to see how positive you are. Just overall, you know what I mean. But you need to. Yeah, exactly. We need to get you home to your family. We got to finish them right, and we've taken up enough of these poor folks' time. One last quick thought, if I may. Jameson Williams was used a little bit differently today. Well, they used him on a couple of crossing routes. You can see, you're talking about Ben Johnson, you can see him. He's on the field more, first of all, and they're starting to bring him in for not just blocking on short third down run plays, because he's actually a pretty sneaky good blocker for his size. Yeah. But they're using him a little bit more. And so that's maybe one small encouraging thing taken out of the game that you can see they're going to have more to work with. Maybe Ben Johnson will take those, the great guru will take that 10, 11 days he's got and find even more ways. But that'd be my one little, if you're trying to find something positive, he's coming.
Didn't you write about him last week?
I did.
Okay, so you're going to write about him again?
No, I'm not.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, no, he is. He's, Dave Burkett noted that on their first touchdown drive when Sam Laporta scored on a pass, but before that, he'd had a long play, a long catch down the sideline. And Dave mentioned noted that Jameson Williams made that happen because he took two defenders' attention away, and that isolated Laporta on the outside one-on-one and made it happen. Now that's Ben Johnson drawing up a play, and Jameson Williams, making it happen.
And he'd caught a ball a couple of plays before, right? to start off on a crossing pattern. So So
and later on, he caught a really nice deep ball, and he had to catch it with his hands, not his body.
He used
his hands, and then he fought for more yards and spun around, and people liked it. And I think it's nice that people are cheering for him. I like that he hasn't had any setbacks, no issues, no drama, no weird stuff. So that's a lot of credit to him for either growing up or the Lions taking someone who's really smart, who advised them to give him a mentor maybe to help guide him a little bit.
Always listen to Carlos.
Yeah. I don't know who that was, but it was someone smart. I can't remember.
Someone very smart. Yeah. Someone smart who wants to get out of here, by the way, too, right now.
So it was encouraging. But I mean, that's definitely a positive. The run game continues to still be effective. Even despite not having full health on the offensive line
and not being able to protect the quarterback, they did open up some holes for their two backs. So
I think that my prediction is when they look at this tape, when Goff and Ben Johnson look at the tape, they're going to say, listen, when we know we're going in here without Jonah Jackson, without, when we're starting, rookie lineman, we got to be aware of pressure, where it's coming from, and be ready to flush out faster and burn the ball. Because he got called for an intentional grounding, the kind of borderline fumble, forward progress thing, with his arm, momentum. I mean, he's just got to be a little bit more aware of hey, if the pressure is going to be coming more, I got to play safer.
They can never find the rhythm, right? They can never get in a groove. Right. They can never get connected. Defensively, obviously, the pass rush and the coverage, that's been an issue for a few weeks. But offensively, they just could not find that that groove, that we're used to seeing from them. And it's not that they weren't aware that the Packers don't have some, Rashawn Gary for one. Frank Clark, I think,
their sack percentage is really low.
No, but they do, which is odd because they got some talented guys there. But they did talk. Do the Lions?
I would say Aiden Hutchinson's pretty good. Aleem McNeil's pretty good.
No, McNeil is very good. Pascal could be good down the road, but real quickly to just to wrap this up here to your last point. Yes, the idea of anticipation is part of what makes Ben Johnson so good, and there's no way they didn't talk about that. But listen to a couple of the players and the coach afterwards. They seemed slightly surprised that they were so good at rushing and so effective at rushing, and then they couldn't adjust to that. So, look, New Orleans is going to be a slightly different kind of test. Not a great offense, but they do have some defensive nastiness to them, and they're going to have to figure that out. They got a lot of time to do it, a little bit of extra time, I should say. Well, you need to go right. I need to
go eat.
I guess I need to go right. But let's get out of here. What do you say?
Sounds good.
Okay. All right. We will be back next week? I'm confused. It's a holiday. Yeah, we'll be back next week. We'll probably have a road edition if you want from New Orleans. It depends.
Well, we'll probably record on for Thursday.
Yeah, we'll definitely do that. And maybe we'll somehow, technology will keep us connected while you're in New Orleans. I think that'll be nice. Sure. We want to thank you for listening, mostly to Carlos, maybe a little bit to me. And we don't need to thank anybody else.
No, I don't think so.
No, we're good. We're good. All right. Until next week, when we return with more Free Press Sports with Carlos and Shawn. Thanks for joining us on this lovely Thanksgiving holiday.